have Svalbard. This is a group of islands located between mainland Norway and the North Pole. In fact, it has been given the name as one of the world's northernmost inhabited areas. Just over 2,000 individuals live there. In fact, there's more polar bears living there than humans. And sometimes the bears like to wander into the town. And if you want to leave the outskirts of the town, you have to carry a firearm in defense, just in case one of these bears get hungry and choose to attack. Not only that, but this place has very long days and very long nights. From April to the end of August, the sun never sets. So it's literally sunlight for 24 hours a day. And then during the winter months, you get 24 hours of darkness. Honestly, my sleep schedule would hate me if I lived there. In our ninth spot, we have Oymyakon Russia. This town is said to be the coldest town in the world. So next time you complain about the weather, just know that there are people living here and having it 10 times worse. So their average daily temperatures are negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 50 degrees Celsius. This town is so cold that their name literally translates to pole of cold. On top of that, their ground is permanently frozen, so they can't really farm or grow crops. This restricts them to mainly eating raw, frozen fish or meat. It also means that they can't have a plumbing system because any water in the pipes will freeze. So they rely on outhouses. And you know how cars tend to die because of the cold? Well, they have to worry about that constantly. In fact, they need to have their cars continuously running if they're outside, or they need to be placed inside a heated garage. Also, if they're outside wandering around, they have to worry about frostbite. They can't have any skin exposed. Currently, around 500 people live there, and I don't know why, honestly. Not only is it freezing, but the town faces 21 hours of darkness a day. So, talk about depressing. In our 8th spot today, we have Coober, Pedy, Australia. Now, I won't lie, this next place is pretty fascinating. So, Coober Pedy is an underground town in Australia. Yeah, you heard me. It's underground. They live underground. Now that's because this area is known for its extreme heat. So back in the day when they didn't have electricity and fans and air conditioning, miners in the area would remain underground to escape the heat. Then eventually they were like, what if we just live underground? And that's basically how the town was formed. Currently around 2,000 people live there, and it's not just a bunch of homes. No, you got a full-on hospital and church and shops down there. They also have their own government as well. Now, when you are above ground, they actually have warning signs telling people that there are unmarked holes, so you don't just, fall through someone's chimney and end up in their living room. Not gonna lie though, this place would be really cool to visit. In our 7th spot today, we have Atacama Desert. Some areas in this desert haven't seen precipitation in 400 years. That's how dry it is there. In fact, its soil is drier than any other on Earth. So dry that no organism can live in it, meaning they can't even farm because all crops would just immediately die. With all that being said, this area is home to the Atacama tribe. They've been living there since before the Inca Empire. In order to survive, farmers lay the horns of freshly killed cattle to attract insects, which then fertilize the land to increase crop yields. Not only that, but they capture moisture using fog nets in order to create water. So it's pretty clever if you ask me. Moving on to number 6, we have Dallol, Ethiopia. Now this town has been given the name the Gateway to Hell, and that's because it can reach temperatures of 145 degrees. In fact, due to its heat, it is said to be the hottest inhabited place on Earth. One reason why it's so hot is because it sits above an active volcano. It's so hot that if you stand in one place for a few minutes, it could literally melt your shoes. So you might be wondering, if it's so hot, how do people there even survive? Well, they paint their homes and objects so that it will reflect the sun. But as of now, it's a ghost town. No one lives there permanently, but people do go there to visit. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Migingo Island. Migingo Island is a small island located on Lake Victoria, which is the largest lake in Africa. How small is this island, you ask? Well, it's only 2,000 square miles, which, if that means nothing to you, it's less than the size of a football field. That's how small it is. But there's still about 500 people living there, and they're mainly fishermen. But since there's so many people living on such a small island, it's incredibly packed. Houses are crammed together and are made from tin and any other material that wash up on their island. Yet, they still managed to find room for 4 bars and a hair salon, you know, the essentials. Now, the main attraction to this island is that it's home to tons of Nile perch fish. They can catch way more of this fish from this island than anywhere else. It was said that the first inhabitants came to this island in 1991, and that's when the island was only covered in weeds and snakes. Nowadays, it's just overwhelmed with all things fishing related. Coming in at number 4, we have Kerguelen Islands. Located more than 2,000 miles away from civilization, you got the Kerguelen Islands. These islands are located in the southern Indian Ocean and have been given the name the Desolation Islands. And that's due to how remote they are. Like I said, they are 2,000 miles away from Africa, and the only way you can get there is by a ship. But this ship only operates 4 days a year. Not only that, but the weather there isn't great. They get rain, sleet, or snow 300 days a year. The only people that dare to live there are French researchers. 50 stay there in the winter, 100 in the summer. Besides them, they have no permanent residence. In our third spot today, we have Medog. This is the most remote county in Tibet. The only way to get there is by a single highway. But before that highway was built in 2013, the only way you could get there was by crossing a 200-meter long suspension cable 100 meters high in the air. And in order to bring supplies in, they had to carry it in and out by hand. Now, there have been attempts to create more roads or highways leading into this area. However, a number of mudslides and earthquakes have taken them down. Moving on to number 2, we have Amundsen Scott South Pole. Located 9,000 feet above sea level on an ice sheet, we have Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. This is a station that the United States use for scientific research. This station is the only inhabited place on Earth where the sun is continuously visible for 6 months and then is continuously dark for the next 6 months. As a result, they say they only have 1 day and 1 night per year. Not only that, but the weather there is very frigid. The temperatures can dip as low as minus 90 degrees, making it one of the most coldest places on Earth. The only people living there are 50 to 200 researchers, and their food and supplies are dropped to them by cargo planes. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Longyearbyen. This is the world's northernmost settlement. It's located in the Svalbard archipelago, which we previously talked about. Now, what's wild about this is that they have a very unusual rule if you want to live there. Their rule is no dying. That's right. And this is because of the permafrost and sub-zero temperatures, so it can easily preserve a body, which they really don't want. Also, it's hard to bury bodies there because obviously the ground is frozen. So as a result, people that are dying are flown to Oslo to die there. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Tibetan Plateau. It is well known that when a person is at altitudes that are higher than 2,400 meters or 8,000 feet, there are negative effects on the body such as altitude sickness or high altitude pulmonary edema. It's not something that just anyone can do without experiencing side effects, and that is exactly why those who live in the Tibetan Plateau are so incredible. Often referred to as the roof of the world, the Tibetan Plateau sits at an average of 4,500 meters or 14,800 feet. It's covered in glaciers and sees more hail than it does rain or snow because of these heights. Despite all the challenges that would come with living in an environment like this, nomadic herdsmen are dispersed throughout this region, even in the most inhospitable regions such as the Changtang region, where the altitude is even higher than the average and the temperatures are the lowest out of the entire plateau, leaving little to no vegetation besides grass for livestock. I think one of the reasons why this place, despite its seemingly inhospitable environment, is still inhabited is because of the fact that the earliest human occupation of the plateau is thought to have happened around 30,000 to 40,000 years ago. That's some deep roots, and it's a clear testament to those that still live there. In our number 9 spot today, we have Lake Nyos. Lake Nyos is located in Cameroon, and it is different from any regular old lake because of the volcanic crater that it sits in. The magma floor releases carbon dioxide into both the water and the surrounding air, making it a less than ideal place to live and breathe. Usually the CO2 just dissipates into the air, mostly harmlessly, but in 1986 there was a limnic eruption that caused catastrophe. A limnic eruption is very rare, but it's what happens when dissolved carbon dioxide suddenly erupts from lake waters, which then goes on to form a gas cloud. The resulting gas cloud is extremely dangerous and is capable of displacing the oxygen in the area, which of course is lethal to any living thing, which is exactly exactly what happened in 1986. This limnic eruption caused a noxious cloud of more than 1 million tons of CO2. This ended up taking the lives of 1,700 people in the area, as well as the 3,500 livestock, which made it the first known large-scale asphyxiation caused by a natural event. Despite the threat of another eruption, as well as the lake's weakening walls that could result in a massive flood, people have resettled the area around the lake. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't risk it, which makes me wonder why these people chose here. I'm sure there's gotta be a reason. In our number 8 spot today we have Zabol. This city is located in Iran and it is an absolute hotspot for dust storms. The summer season is where the worst of it is seen, with what is known as the 120-day winds. This is when dust and other matter absolutely bombards the city, which is due to the disappearance of the wetlands as well as the extremely high temperatures seen in the region. These dust storms aren't just inconvenient, they're actually very dangerous for those who live in the area. So much so that every year officials hand out thousands of air pollution masks to help prevent the damage that these storms can cause to the lungs. In 2016, the city was named as the most polluted city in the world by the World Health Organization, and a study in 2017 even found that the damage from breathing this air for 30 minutes outweighs the benefit of 30 minutes of cycling, meaning it is exceptionally detrimental. In our number 7 spot today we have St. Kilda. St. Kilda is the most remote settlement of the British Isles, and it is so isolated that it is often cut off by storms for weeks and sometimes even months at one time. That is most likely the reason as to why the previous inhabitants had developed a culture, economy, and government that was completely separate and different to their English rulers. Unfortunately, between missionaries and officials coming to the island in an attempt to change their way of life that was working perfectly fine for them, their sources of income dwindling, births not being able to keep up with the death rate and the emigration rate, combined as well with the inevitable disease-ridden tourists coming to their island for whatever reason, things for those who once lived on this island changed drastically, and it was decided that they would evacuate the island in 1930. Since then, people have tried to resettle the island, but none have remained permanently, likely because of the isolation. In our number 6 spot today we have Spratly Islands. This is a group of islands whose ownership is claimed by multiple countries. Definitely a bit of a conflict. The reason so many countries want to lay claim to these islands is because of their strategic position for military and shipping in the South China Sea. The islands are in the midst of vast fishing grounds, and it is believed that they might house deposits of oil and natural gas. So in terms of countries fighting for these islands, there's China, Taiwan, and Vietnam that lay claim to all of the islands, with Malaysia and the Philippines claiming smaller portions of the entire group. Because of this controversy over who these islands actually belong to, there aren't any permanent settlements that exist on these islands, but all 5 of these countries occupy them with military forces. It is also said that China has begun to build artificial islands in the area, which has come under scrutiny as this is quite harmful and detrimental to local coral reefs. In our number 5 spot today we have Surtsey Island. Okay, this island isn't terrifying per se, but it is exceptionally interesting. So basically, this island was born in 1963, and by that I mean it emerged from the sea in that year just off of the coast of Iceland after 4 years of being formed by an undersea volcano. A brand new island? What could we possibly do with that? While I'm sure humans could find 1,000,001 ways to ruin it, surprisingly we decided not to do that at all. Instead, this island was protected in order to allow scientists to study how new ecosystems form and what happens when there's no human involvement. This means that while there isn't a permanent settlement here, there are scientists who come to study on the island, and they have very strict rules to adhere to. One of these rules is no seeds and no using the facilities on the island. That last rule is because one day when scientists found a tomato growing on the island, they were quite confused as to how. Turns out somebody had gone number 2 not too long before, and thus a new poop tomato was grown from the ground. That's terrifying, a poop tomato. In our number 4 spot today we have Centralia. Located in Pennsylvania, this town is often referred to as one of the gateways to hell. That is due to the fire that spread in an underground coal mine underneath the town in 1962. Despite the years it's been Often, the fire still blazes underground, which causes the smoke and poisonous gases to rise up and out, not only causing an eerie appearance, but a serious health hazard as well. The temperatures can be so hot in areas that one guy's backyard was measured at 626 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes the fire will also burn through supports underground, which in the end turns into a sinkhole. This has caused pets, wildlife, and residents to unsuspectingly get swallowed up into the hole. In 1984, the US government ordered a total evacuation of the town, but a handful of residents refused to leave and even went to court over their right to stay in the town for as long as they live. In our number 3 spot today, we have Kabwe. Located in Zambia, this place has been described as the world's most toxic town. The toxins in this town are due to the previous century of mining and smelting, which led to generations being exposed to unbelievable amounts of toxins and a mass lead poisoning. The plants closed in 1994, but at that point, the damage had already been done. The population of 220,000 people that still live here are still exposed to lead in the dust and soil that is 10 times the US safety limit, but they stay out of necessity. At this point in time, the World Bank is now conducting a $65 million remediation project, and while that is great news, nothing can be done for all of the people who had to deal with this for the last century and a half. In our number 6 spot today, we have Wittenoom. This place in Australia is the home of a former blue asbestos mine, which is exactly what makes it one of the most contaminated places in the country. I mean this literally. The roads were paved with asbestos even after the mine shut down in 1966. While this city was once the home to 20,000 residents, the population dropped significantly after the deaths of 300 former mine workers from mesothelioma. Apparently, it was decided that it would be too expensive to clean up the town, so instead the government just declared it unfit to inhabit and took it off the maps. While most people have since left the town, it is said that 3 residents refused to leave and still remain in the almost completely abandoned town. In our number 1 spot today, we have La Oroya. Located in Peru, this town has a population of 30,000 people despite the metal smelter contamination that has been seen since 1922. The smelter closed in 2009 after the company that ran it declared bankruptcy, but here's how that happened in the first place. The American-owned company ran out of money because they had to fund the environmental cleanup and the anti-pollution measures. Seems like maybe they should have chosen a different path. Seems like it didn't pay off to pollute someone else's air. I guess they forgot that there's consequences for actions. It still remains as one of the most polluted areas in the entire world, and the toxic metals have gone on to infect the water, the soil, and the air. While it is completely unsafe to live there, people still do, and sadly, they suffer the extreme adverse effects of it.
Coming in at number 10, we have a house in the middle of a river. This right here is practically on my doorstep, although for these guys, their doorstep is a soggy affair. This house is nestled right in the middle of the St. Lawrence River. I guess the owners also have invested in a boat and know how to swim, because if not, living here would be an absolute nightmare. Also, I can tell you firsthand how cold it gets in the winter in Ontario, so chances are during the gloomier months, this house sits in the middle of a huge sheet of ice. Coming in at number 9, we have earthships. Earthships are buildings made from 100% recycled or natural materials and offer sustainable and affordable living. Earthship is based in New Mexico in the United States, but it's possible for a person to use Earthship designs to build anywhere. The headquarters is absolutely breathtaking and allow the dweller to grow their own food on the premises, as well as focus on sustainable energy. I love looking at these pictures, it looks so futuristic. Coming up next in at number 8 of the craziest places that people actually live, we have in shipping containers. We all know that housing is pretty expensive these days, especially in big cities. Over the past 5 or so years, shipping container houses have been introduced to tackle the problem of affordable housing. The good news is they're easily deliverable, and if you fancy moving, they're relatively portable. The containers cost around $1,800 each, but they're just 1,000 square feet. Although the good news is you can buy more than one to make more space and even more floors. What some people have managed to do with their shipping containers is nothing short of stunning. Coming in at number 7, we have on a school bus. This is actually a pretty sad story. In 2012, 2 children were found living in an abandoned school bus with fitted electricity, running water, an air conditioning unit, and bunk beds. The bus, 35 miles outside of Houston, Texas, was said to be on a plot of land that the children's parents owned and were hoping to build on. Unfortunately for the 2 kids, one aged 11 and the other aged just 5, their parents had both been sent sent to jail, and they were hoping that they could just fend for themselves with the help of neighbours. Luckily they were found and taken into care. Coming in at number 6, we have In a Luxury Cave. Kurt and Deborah Sleeper bought a cave in Festus, Missouri on eBay. Yes, eBay. This isn't even the craziest part. They then spent years turning the cave into their dream home, and it looks magnificent. The limestone walls certainly give the house a very unique and distinct feel. Taking a leaf from Old Mother Hubbard in at number 5, we have people who live in shoes. Okay, so these aren't actually shoes, or at least they wouldn't fit on any foot that I've seen, but there are indeed people who have had homes built to resemble shoes. It isn't always just your average shoe either. Get a load of this 2-bedroom cowboy boot house in Houston, Texas, because where else? One of the most famous shoe houses out there is in Hallam, Pennsylvania. The Haynes Shoe House is now owned by Jeff and Melanie Schmuck, who bought the property in 2015. From inside a cave to the edge of a cliff, coming in at number 4. Look at this house. Oh my goodness, it's giving me a panic attack just thinking about it. Talk about living on the edge. Oh my god. This 5-story property in southwest Australia is built into the side of a cliff, and I don't know. I can't imagine even setting foot in this place, let alone living there. Dangling over the Indian Ocean, the property was inspired by the hull of a ship. Architects say the property is safe, and even though this house looks fantastic on the inside, I don't fancy living on the edge of a cliff. Just like, call me crazy, but no. Maybe I would like to live in our next place. Coming in at number 3, we have underwater. Yep, people actually live underwater, although it's a bit less glamorous than The Little Mermaid makes it out to seem. A small number of aquanauts live under the ocean, like this group who live in Aquarius Reef Base run by the Florida International University. Aquarius is 20 meters below the surface, which means those who live in the base have to adjust to the change in pressure, making it harder for them to come and go as they please. The aquanauts have a kettle and a microwave on the base, and a shower using fresh water, as any salt can rust and corrode their home. These people sleep with the fishes every night and live to tell the tale. Coming in at number 2, we have In a Tree. Ex-Marine Mick Dodge used to live a traditional life in a house with a garage and a car, but now he lives in a tree. Mick ditched his shoes, tattooed roots on his feet, and then started living at one with nature with just one friend for company, his dog. These days Mick resides in the high rainforest in Forks, Washington State. At night, he sleeps in trees. Okay, so coming in at number 1 of the craziest places that people actually live, I'm kind of excited about this, we have space. That's right, some humans are already living in space. Since the assembly of the International Space Station in 1998, people have been living just above planet Earth. Right now there are 6 people living up there in the space station, a space environment research lab, but the number can fluctuate between 2 and 10. Right now there are 2 Americans, 3 Russians and a Frenchman on board. The researchers rotate but can spend several hundred days living right up there in space, sleeping and eating there with the best views in the world, or I guess maybe the universe.